Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. Martin Luther, part 17, in which I will pick up where Edward left off. Right now we're reading Martin Luther's introduction to the epistle from Paul to the Romans. So in Martin Luther's German translation of the Bible, I'm assuming you're a little bit familiar with a little bit, but I'll just speed run it. When the canonized Bible was, put into effect, only certain people could read it. It was in Latin. It wasn't the sort of thing that people kept in drawers in motel rooms at the time, right? I'm talking like the 4th century, 300s. And so then time went on. How many centuries? 12 centuries, 1,200 years later, a man named Martin Luther came along and just went ahead and translated it. He was a monk in the Roman Catholic Church, and then he wasn't. Okay. If you want to start at the beginning, here's the playlist, the Martin Luther playlist. I kind of do a basic rundown of Martin Luther at the beginning of episode 1. So there it is. Now, I wanted to share an incomplete thought with you and maybe complete it while talking. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. First, Editor Edward, can we get us a tree of life up here? Thank you. That is the Kabbalistic tree of life based on the Sefer Yetzirah. And this is the version of it that was put together by the Jesuit Roman Catholic priest Athanasius Kircher, and which is commonly used in Western esoterica. In other words, like, if there's crystals involved, it's this one. If there's, any mention of, pagan gods involved in the Kabbalah, it's this one. If there's any mention of, Jesus, especially if they pronounce it Yeshua, involved, it's this one. If there's a rabbi involved, it's probably this one. But we're going to work with this one, just because that's the one I was trained in. That's what this is, this thing. If you're totally unfamiliar and you want to go down a little rabbit hole, just check out this episode of whatever that popular YouTube series is, and then come back. Okay, so you remember how W.B. Yeats was the imperator, and then his boss, if you will, the one that, Crowley went and met in Paris. He was like the head, the founder of the order. Mathers, that guy. Well, this is his ring. So that should give you some idea as to how much of a nerd I am, or am. When I'm wearing this, it's was, because on Chicken Philosophy, we dress up as the 4 different aspects of ourselves. So in that way, I continue to exist as BT, in that I'm here talking to you right now, if that makes any sense. But Pymander's actually the most recent one. Yes. Okay, so yeah, the Tree of Life. So here we've got, now I have to reverse things in my brain. So here we've got, this is basically the physical body, this is the astral, and then up here you've got, let's use the Paul Foster Casey dumb it down words, reason and desire. So you've got Mercury, Mercury, electricity, communication, transportation, all that kind of left brainy kind of stuff. And then over here you've got desire, generally associated with Venus, which is, more feminine, right-brained, you might say, creative. And I would like, now here we get into just so you know what you're dealing with here. Sometimes when I talk about this, you might find that many other people who are trained in the same school as I am might disagree with me. So there's the disclaimer. This is the BT school of Golden Dawn symbolism. So this green one, Netzach, is like a flower that opens up to the sun, which is Tiferet. So it's like, I don't know, picture Mary Magdalene following Jesus around. Like, I want what he's got. And Jesus is like, I've got what I've got. So Jesus in this example would be Tiferet, or Tiferet, which is that's what BT stands for, Ben Tiferet, son of Tiferet. So I'm Jesus Barabbas. Just kidding. Totally kidding. Anyway, so in order to get in touch with this inner rose, that all it can do is reach for the sun and never reach it, and reflect it in beautiful red shimmering designs, the rose, and then die, and in that death achieve union finally. That's the whole, when you die you go to heaven if you do all the right stuff, kind of like that top rung of the astral triangle. I don't know if I'm making any sense. What am I talking about? So the path that connects what they call the corporeal intelligence, which in Hermetic Kabbalah is the path of Kof, connects the body directly with this. Now, you don't want to go there directly. That's not the first path you start with. You start just establishing yourself here with the creation of the temple in Malkuth. Good call, Editor Edward. That link will take you to me rambling about the temple in Malkuth on Esoteric Nerd for a long time. I'm going to have to interrupt here just for a moment, just for the record. This is me, Editor Edward. I'm the same guy that was just talking, but I'm wearing different clothes. When I'm wearing clothes like this, I'm Edward. When I'm wearing those other clothes, I'm BT. That's kind of how that works. At least on here. That's chicken philosophy canon. Anyway, so he doesn't know I'm talking to you right now. So this is kind of like, it's just between us, like, it's like secret in a way. He'll never know because he's in the past. And anyway, so he just mentioned the temple in Malkuth and then thanked me for putting a link to the temple in Malkuth up in the corner. And you might have noticed that link didn't pop up in the corner because I wanted to explain to you first. See, later in this video, he's going to point up to the corner again and mention the universe card, or the path of Tav. And then again, mentioning the path of Shin, and then again mentioning the path of Resh, that's judgment and the sun. And so he's going to think, because he's thinking there was the Martin Luther playlist. We're only allowed to do that 5 times, 5 links in the corner of the screen per video. So he's thinking the Martin Luther playlist was 1, then Temple in Malkuth, Universe, Judgment, and the Sun, and then he laments that he wasn't able to point a 6th time for the Moon card. But what he's forgetting is that you might remember, chimed in with the Secret Life of Trance link, so that's 2 links, and also the Extra History link to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn episode on Extra History. That's 3 links, and also I don't know if it's happened yet or not because I'm recording this before I get to that point in the editing process, just preemptively, just to get all these Editor Edward recordings done with. A little bit of behind-the-scenes movie magic for you. Anyway. You know what? I also forgot to record the audio for this. Oh, no, I didn't. It's recording the audio. I thought it was going to be that poor quality cell phone camera audio. Don't you love when I go off on tangents? I know I do. Anyway, so there's the Martin Luther playlist link, the Extra History link, the taco link, which whether it's happened or not, no, it hasn't. It hasn't happened yet. That'll happen later. When I hold up the taco, it'll make sense, and I'll lament that, I ran out of links. No, you didn't run out of links. You're going to get a link for that one to the playlist for taco and other poems. And that'll be a playlist for taco and other poems. It'll make sense when you get there. But for now, the reason that I interrupted just now, the reason I'm talking to you right now, is because I, in my future, but your past, as you're watching this, will have. See, future tense for me, past tense for you. There needs to be another tense for that. Anyway, I'm going to create a playlist, an unlisted playlist on the Esoteric Nerd podcast called From Station to Station. That's David Bowie, a track called From Station to Station, when he was way into cocaine and magic and the Tree of Life and stuff. They don't necessarily go together. They're not supposed to go together, but for him, they went together in 1975, I believe it was. And so station to station means like moving up the Tree of Life along the paths. So it's kind of like exactly like on the nose what we're talking about, pathworking and establishing the temples in the Sefirot. Yeah, that's plural. So that's the playlist, and that playlist is going to include the Temple in Malkut, the episode that includes, in the beginning, the universe card pathworking from Malkut to Yesod. Where is it? So, yeah, Temple in Malkut, from Malkut to Yesod, this path and the establishing of the temple in Yesod. That's going to be the second track on the playlist. And then the traveling along the temple, traveling along Judgment and the Sun, and establishing the temple in Hod. I think that's all in one. No, those are two separate ones. So that's going to be track 3 and track 4 on the From Station to Station playlist. And then track 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, track 5 is going to be the one that has the moon card pathworking. So, if when this is all over, you're interested in that, the Temple of Malkut, the whole thing is Temple of Malkut. The other 4 in the playlist are just the intro segment is the pathworking. And you're welcome to listen to the interview that comes afterward, but you don't have to get what it's for. And I may, at some point, make separate, possibly unlisted videos that are just the pathworking portions of those introductions. So depending on where you are in time, if you're within a day or two after this episode comes out on the 10th of September, then most likely you'll see the full episodes in that playlist. But if you're like a little further in the future, then you might see, universe card pathworking, judgment card pathworking, sun card pathworking, and establishes the temple in Hod, or what is something like that, and the moon card pathworking. That's where I left off. I don't think I did a star card pathworking or a tower card pathworking. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will now that I've made this playlist. Now it's an unfinished beast that I'll have to finish one day. So if you're far enough in the future, you might see the star card and the tower card and the establishing the temple in Netzach as well. Then you work your way up the path of Tav. Yeah, in that interview with that store at the beginning, I did the path of Tav pathworking. We're going to run out of cards pretty quickly at this rate. And then, from there, then you get over here. So you go up the path of Shin, where you can distinguish between the fire which eternally creates, the fire which eternally destroys, and that subtle astral fire which itself is eternal and is you. Isn't that nice? Isn't that good news? So things get shoved into existence and shoved out of existence, and you're there the whole time going, that was fun, right? Isn't that nice? So that's the judgment card, and through that and the sun, where you kind of get yourself into your own frontal lobe, then you can make it up to Hod, which is reason, let's say, or splendor. Anyway, so then you want to try to get over to there. Like, this is as far as a lot of people go. It's like, I have achieved Spock-like reason. I have achieved pure reason. I do not allow my emotions to affect my decision-making. I will work and reproduce and be healthy. And that's good. You know, I'm not negging the folk who cap out there. But then if you want to go further on the path of the flaming sword, right, then you try to make it over to the green one. And the three paths that lead up there are, you go up the path of Kof, which is the moon card on the tarot. The tarot trumps. That word is hopefully not forever marred by the asshole. Anyway, and then the sun card, or rather the star card. Zadi is the star, Crowley. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. That was a little inside joke. Yeah. So this is like, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Adam is a woman because he had a sex change and he's pouring water, and everything's good because it's the 2000s, man. This ain't the 1900s no more, or the thousands, or everything in between. Which we'll get to that. That relates to the 1500s a little bit, indirectly. What am I talking about? I'll get there. I will. I really will. I'm not just doing this to minimize the amount of actual reading Martin Luther I have to do in this episode. I swear. That's actually a true statement. I'm not. It's just a nice side effect. By the way, Editor Edward, what's this music? That is The Secret Life of Trance, Volume 3. There's a playlist. I don't know why, it just popped into my head, that track with the do started playing in my head. I think shortly after I finished reciting when I was BT, and so I just went with it. Thank you, Editor Edward. Okay. So then there's the Tower card, and it's a whole other topic. So the Moon card. Now, I did a card I mean these links. I did one for Martin Luther playlist. I did one for Temple and Malkuth. I did one for the Universe card. That leaves 2. So if I'm being responsible, then I should tell you, this one has the Judgment card pathworking in it. And then allow some time to go by. Time goes by so slowly, to allow some time between YouTube cards that I point to in the corner, and this one has the Sun card. So those are the 5 links that I'm pointing to in today's episode. Now, if you should choose to go on this adventure and listen to that whole Temple and Malkuth spiel, and you can listen to the beginning of the one with the Universe card pathworking. The Universe card pathworking is probably like half an hour, and the interview is like, I don't know, an hour and a half or something. You can listen to that interview if you want to. But anyway, the Shin card similarly is the beginning of the episode that I pointed to, and the Sun card is the beginning of the episode that I pointed to. By that time, if you complete all of that, you should be able to figure out how to find the pathworking of Kof, or the moon. This is the Moon card as drawn by Sandra Tabitha Cicero. Thank you, Sandra Tabitha Cicero. And those with a keen eye might notice some similarities between the cover of my first poetry compilation, Taco. Oh, I can't point to the corner. Oh, well, there it is. This is my poetry compilation. You know what? Since you're familiar with the concept of clicking a link in the description and getting yourself a copy of the Kindle on account of the recent episode called Special Announcement, unless it's after September 11th, in which it'll be called The New World Empire and the Interdimensional Copies. I'll just go ahead and say, in the link, in the description below, you'll find a link to the Kindle version of this. It isn't free right now, but it will be one day. Whatever, anyway. I'll just make it free. I'll make it free. It'll probably start tomorrow. Today's the 10th, so I don't know. It'll be free for 5 days. I'll make it free for 5 days, just for you, to get a free copy of my some of my poetry. Just only 600 pages of my poetry. So yeah, see, you got the two little these little guys in the background. This is a subtle reference to the star card. See, you got the light blue star, kind of adjacent there. The star card is this path, and the moon card is this path. So anyway, once upon a time, when I was in Philosophus, which is the grade where you're working the paths, these three paths that lead up to this green one. And I decided, because someone had told me that this is where, it's like your dream consciousness. I refer to it as the filter that catches all the shit. Like, okay, in other words, you are in the eternal now, experiencing, this isn't true. It could be true. It's true on one level. This is just for the sake of the metaphor. I'm saying this. Don't take it too seriously. You are remaining in the eternal now and running through a holographic projection tape of this thing called time, right? And so what you experience as past is that part of now that you've already experienced, and what you experience as future is that part of now that you have yet to experience. And as the thing flows through you like a river, you have within your nature a sort of filter, like a coffee filter or a screen or whatever. And sometimes little crabs and shit get stuck in the filter. And so you find yourself walking around having nightmares about crabs and shit, metaphorically speaking. Whatever's in the river, gunk and rocks and dirt and, beer bottles and whatever's in the river, So the idea of pathworking, going into this card, is to eventually get to the point where your filter is clean again. At least that's the idea. They'd probably call that, I don't know, some level of clear or something in Hubbard's thing, which was Crowley's student, or Parsons' student. Parson was Crowley's student. Crowley was Mather's student. Mather's ring. See, it's all connected, or at least Scientology and Golden Dawn. What's my point? So there I was. I was inside this card. And you start out as this little crawdad, this little crab. You just come in sitting as a baby on top of this, and you arise out of the waters, and then you go on the path, and then this dog says, "Who are you?" And you say, "Well, for practical purposes, my name is Edward, but truly I'm," or whatever you say. "I seek to learn that I may serve." And then the other dog says, "Follow me, scumbag," or whatever he says, And then you walk on the yellow brick road. But someone told me that you can confront and overcome your inner demons in this card, which is like one of many things that may or may not be accurate from whatever perspective, right? And so I went in and I got to the beginning of the path, and I was like, you know what? Instead of following the dog, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back in the water. I'm going to go backwards on this path into the water that you start out in. And there, I'm going to just say, all right, demons, come on, inner demons that are hiding underneath the surface and in the closet. I'm ready to take you on. I wasn't like coming from like a Jungian, I'm going to hug you. I was more like, I'm going to draw an earth banishing pentagram at you, or hold up the banner of the West at you, and all this. And so I did that. And there were all these sharks and, these scary things and stingrays and whatnot. So then I don't know, I used a divine name or something, and so everything swam away, earth banishing pentagram, banner of the West, and everything was gone. Nothing was left except for this little crab, this little thing in a shell. And so I held the banner of the West up at it, and the shell flew off, and there was this frightened little slug, snail-looking thing inside that was inside the shell, and it was looking at me kind of scared. And I was thinking, if the banner of the West didn't cause it to be banished, then it must be of the nature of good and godly, And so I asked it, "What is your name?" And it said, "Baggett." And I said, "What is your purpose, Baggett? What do you do?" And it said, "I don't know." And then it ran away. And then, oh, by the way, this is Baggett. Okay, So Bagot ended up, because of that experience, I decided to make Bagot a character in the New World Empire, which you might have heard about recently. If you haven't, go to the Chicken Philosophy main page. I ran out of links. I used up the links in paths and stuff. So, yeah. Go back to Special Announcement or New World Empire in the Interdimensional Coffee House. Watch the episode or click the link, and then you'll get yourself a copy of the book. And then you can learn about Bagot, the character that was inspired by the little snail that I just told you about, or whatever it was. So then ISIS, not the terrorist organization, YouTube algorithm robot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about there was a goddess named Isa, or something like that, Aset, or whatever, a mother goddess, wife of Osiris, mother of Horus, sister of Nebutet or Nephthys, wife of Asar, mother of Heru. Anyway, so anyway, she shows up, right? And it's this sort of syncretization, this syncretized Isis. People have feelings about that, I know. Sort of an Alexandrian period, or like a post-Alexandrian kind of like combination of the Virgin Mary and Isis and, I don't know, Demeter or something. So it was this particular goddess that was the matron or patron or whatever of our temple. And she shows up. I think maybe I called on her, I don't remember. So she shows up and she says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm pathworking the moon card." And she's like, "No, what are you doing here in the water in the moon card?" And I said, "Oh, I was going to confront and overcome my inner demons." And she says, "The path is that way. That way. You overcome the darkness by moving toward the light. The Hieris doesn't overcome the Klipot west of the temple by turning around and staring at them. You know, that whole, when you stare at the abyss stares back. Now, there's more than one abyss, so don't take that too seriously. If you stare at the demons long enough, you become one, you know. That kind of thing. And anyway, no, he doesn't do it that way. He does it by keeping his eyes fixed on the Laman of the Hierophant in the east, and by maintaining that ray with Tifachet as he sits down at the base of Malkut, right? He sits down at the base of this one, and he's keeping his eyes on this one, right? And and so I was like, oh, okay. And so, and then I taught that to my students quite often, that you overcome the darkness by keeping your eyes fixed on the light. You overcome evil by keeping your eyes fixed on the good. And perhaps, maybe, because the Hieris is related to Philosophists, so maybe this is like specifically really good advice for someone on the Philosophist point in their journey. Or maybe it's good advice forever. This is where the thought becomes partially formed. Maybe it is hubris, spiritual hubris, to get to a point in your journey where you say, you know what? I'm so complete in my journey. The lead has become gold. I have become Osirified. I am he who is born in the body of flesh, yet in whom flames the spirit of the eternal gods. You know, and not only that, I have even transcended the entire egregore in which that alchemical perfection took place. And now I'm on a Buddhist journey, and so I'm like on the most hardcore Buddhist journey of all, of moving to India, and you know, like, I'm saying this is spiritual hubris, right? That leads me to decide, after all this time, after the wisdom of Isis was given to me, to turn around and look backwards into the ocean, into the darkness, into the Klipot of the 16th century and my own ancestral memories, and dive in and get to know one of the demons and find out specifically what he said in order to, I don't know what the fuck was the reason why we started reading this, but anyway, that's my introduction for today. I'm going to pick up where we left off in reading Martin Luther's introduction to the Epistle to the Romans, the New Testament. I need my magnifying glass. One moment. All right. Cool. I've got about 8 minutes left to read. This is why faith alone justifies, bringing with it the spirit and the longing for good, external works. Nothing wrong with that. Kind of ish. It's fine. It's harmless. It's the best we can hope for with Martin Luther. Similarly, unbelief also commits sin, bringing the flesh and the longing for evil, external works, as it happened to Adam and Eve in the garden. And there's where it's toxic and not harmless anymore. Because of this, Christ calls unbelief sin, as he says in John. And of course, Yeshua was referring specifically to everything that Martin Luther takes for granted as a Roman Catholic monk in the 16th century, as the definition, the 52 types of faith, and all of that stuff that Constantine and his ilk and the people throughout the centuries came up with in the Vatican is exactly what Jesus was talking about, because if he's omniscient, if God and the Father, if Jesus and the Father are one, and the Father knows everything, that means Jesus knew everything, which means that what he would do would result in the Roman Catholic Church, which means he knew the Roman Catholic Church would come up with the definition of faith that Martin Luther is talking about, which is why when he said unbelief is a sin, he was referring to the same thing Martin Luther is. See, that's the kind of logic that you'll run into when you try to have an argument with your uncle over Thanksgiving. Thank God I don't have any such uncles. Those folks are far enough out in my family tree that I never had many holidays with them. If they're watching, hi, blessings to you who share some portion, an eighth or a 16th of my DNA. I hope you're doing well. And I appreciate that you're praying for me and my soul. And best wishes to you. Okay, let's continue. 16, 8 through 9. What? Did I skip something? What are we? Oh, John 16, 8 through 9. Quote, "The Spirit will convince the world because of sin. Because they do not believe in me." End quote. "For this reason, too, before good or bad works emerge," parentheses, "akin to the way good or bad fruit grows from a plant," end quote. Usually it has to rot, let it rot, like, build a big stone temple to it and let it age about 1,530 years. That'll do it. It'll be nice and rotten by then. Sorry. I'll keep my editorial commentary to myself. No, I won't. "Unbelief is the root." Oh, wait. "There must first be in the heart either belief or unbelief. Unbelief is the root, the sap, and the chief power of all sin. In the scriptures it is called the serpent's head, and the head of the old dragon, which is the seed of the woman. Christ must trample underfoot." Didn't the woman trample it underfoot? Fucking reread Revelation, Martin. Stupid. "It must trample underfoot as was promised to Adam. The grace of God is different from the gift of God." Also Krishna. Krishna trampled the serpent underfoot when he was a little kid, stealing butter. Still a thief, and he's overcoming the serpent. "The grace of God is different from the gift of God. Grace means precisely..." Oh, are we going to find out? I was wondering. I have ancestors named Grace. "Means precisely the favor or goodwill that God bears towards us, which flows from God to us, the divine inclination to give Christ, together with the Holy Spirit, along with the Spirit's gifts that God causes to flow into us, parentheses, Romans 5, quote, "the grace of God and the free gift in 3 dots, Jesus Christ," end quote, etc., end parentheses, full stop. I guess that's as good as we're going to get as far as a definition. So, based on that definition, we all have it. There's no way to stop having it, really. Cool. All right. Seems contradictory to the way that it's often used in sentences. Although the gifts and the Spirit grow in us every day, they are not yet completed in us because evil desires and sins remain, and they continue to fight against the Spirit. Parentheses, Romans 7:5 and Galatians 5:17. In parentheses, Genesis 3 proclaims the conflict as between the woman's seed. Okay, basic anatomy, Martin. Never mind. The woman's seed and the serpent's seed. Nevertheless, grace does so much that we become and we are completely righteous in God's sight, because God's grace is not divided or distributed piecemeal like the gifts. Rather, because of Christ, our advocate and our mediator, grace takes us completely into God's favor. And because of this, the gifts are begun in us. In this sense, therefore, you can understand the 7th chapter where St. Paul still calls himself a sinner. Yet he can say in 8:1 that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ, and the incompleteness of the gifts or the Spirit does not change that. Because the flesh is not yet put to death, we remain sinners. But because we believe in Christ and have a beginning of the Spirit, God is so favorable and gracious to us that he will not count the sin against us or judge us because of it. Rather, God deals with us according to our faith in Christ until sin is put to death. Do I need to say anything? Like when you're legitimately doing things that are objectively terrible, then yeah, it's fine as long as you believe in Jesus. Now, if you're doing things that, he would say are terrible, that these days are like, oh yeah, that's, people used to be against that and now they're coming around. That's a different case, but yeah, like murder and stuff. Like, yeah, I murdered. Yeah, I'm a murderer, like Paul was. He killed Saint Stephen, for instance, right? Or had him killed. But back then he had a different name, Saul, so I guess it doesn't count. And he believes in Jesus, so it's all good, baby. And anyway, so I'll just keep reading. No, I won't. We're done. That's it. Yeah, I know. It's going to take a long time to get through this if I keep having these intros like this. But either way, it's going to take us a long time to get through this. Wow. The introduction to the Epistle of Romans is kind of long. All right. Well, that's our episode for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. And, I don't know. What else? Is there anything else? Pymander's going to be reading the next canto or two of The Life and Liberation of Padmasambhava soon. So that's fun. If you'd like to get caught up on his recitals. Now, here's the thing with that, is I, Frater BT, actually began those recitals kind of. For the first two, Padmasambhava 1 and Padmasambhava 2, were on Esoteric Nerd Podcast. Padmasambhavas 3 through, 14, 15, whatever we're up to now, are on Buddhist Books Podcast. And the very next episode of Buddhist Books Podcast is going to be Padmasambhava. They're every 10 episodes of Buddhist Books Podcast. So here, I can't point to the playlist. Well, anyway, go on YouTube and search for Buddhist Books Podcast and subscribe. And down there you can find the playlist called Padmasambhava. I used up all my links on Paths of the Tree of Life today. All right. Well, I don't know if this was a good one. Was it a good? No. There was probably good in it, but being overly critical. I'm going for quantity rather than quality, and going for candidness rather than editing. I used to have this gripe with another poet when we were kids, where he would say, "You would be such a good poet if you'd only edit your work." And even back then, before Gwydion was a thing, I was like, I resent the idea that I need to edit this. When I sat down to write this poem, these are the words that came out. If I should change one single word, then it would be a sin or something. I don't know. I think I must have gotten that from the Bible or Mahayana Buddhism. There's something similar in the Lotus Sutra. Thou shalt not change one iota of this Lotus Sutra, and if you criticize the Lotus Sutra, you're going to be reincarnated in the Avicii hells. So it's like, wow, this is about as enlightened as like Constantinian Christianity. Maybe I should go back and read all the Theravada, so I did that. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. Oh, wow, I've had this. You know what I didn't do? This is the problem, is I didn't light the incense today, and I didn't have any coffee today. A sip of coffee, bit of incense. That's what this episode needs. Feel free to like and subscribe, and next time, it won't be Martin Luther anymore. That's the best part of recording this today, is it's going to be a while before there's a Martin Luther episode again. What's up next? Secret of the Golden Flower's up next. Who read last time? Who read Teilhard de Chardin? Was that Gwydion or Edward? I think that was Gwydion, right? Yeah. So I think Edward is going to be reading Secret of the Golden Flower in the next episode. I could be wrong. I might be totally wrong about that. Anyway, here's where I look around the room, see if there's anything I forgot to mention. My birthday's coming up, September 21st, so there it is. If you want to get me a present, then get yourself a free copy of the New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House. Just search for Edward Reeve on Amazon. Spelled like this. Okay. Shameless. Totally shameless. Was there anything else? There might have been one other thing. If there is, then it'll have to wait until next time. Okay. Yeah.